that you are making the time to prep yourself for next week. And a major milestone, your second submission, your task two, for next week on Thursday. So we won't have class because obviously you will be writing. So no class for us, but I just want to make sure that you are all practicing. And if you have any questions, you know where to find me, and you know where to find your class, your peers, your colleagues. Um, we're going to do a quick practice today, and I would have wanted to have all of you, but we're gonna do with what we have, right? So, but it's a quick practice, and you do have access actually to this practice because it's part of our interactive practice tools that we have. So this is Learning Unit 4. However, you have a wealth out there, and I'm not saying to you go there and find what you can find. No, I'm providing those. So if you check on WhatsApp, I'm also going to put it in our announcement. I'm going to add a few other sessions that were covered. Like for example, learning unit 3 and 4, so that you can keep your focus on those two learning units for your task 2, and a task 2 paper that's we did in class. So you can go through it and see how we solve the paper, how we answer all the questions, and that's a very good thing, so that you are well prepped, you are aware of the type of questions that will come in your task 2. There is no surprise there. So that's really what I expect from you, is not to be surprised at all, but actually to expect certain kind of questions that you will find in your task 2. Should be a pretty easy task if you prepare yourself properly. But let me again reiterate the need to set time aside, prepare. That's very, very important. I don't think that there is another way, but you do have a vast wealth of tools that I've provided to make sure that you are able to synthesize and to get to the meat as fast as possible, that you do not waste time, that you can practice. And again, like I said, the what is surprising is that I'm getting less and less questions, because it could be the fact that many things are provided already. All right. So we are about to start. I'm just going, if you would permit, just switch off my camera to ensure that we do have plenty of bandwidth that we can use for our session. And just make sure that those of you who are not yet in the session, just going to have a quick look on our chat, just to make sure that whoever is trying to join has access to the link. But so we should be good, and we should be started. So as you can see on my screen there, we do have the adaptive learning, learning unit 4, and we are just going to cover, the examples that are in your textbook. That's just to make sure that you understand the examples. You can go through multiple more examples or exercises. They're all in your textbook, and please feel free to explore. But again, it's always very important to see if you know what to do and how to do it. It's very important. So when you are in your exam, your final exam, you will understand that you choosing the right course of action, the right steps to resolve, to answer a particular question is of paramount importance. And so that's really the critical thinking there. We need to build your critical thinking. So you know exactly when you see a question, you know what to do. Okay, so example 4.1 has to do also with the cost classification. If you remember in our last week session, I explained that one of the foundational skill that you need to get is to be able to classify or to categorize costs. So whatever cost you are seeing there, you need to be able to say this is a variable cost, this is a fixed cost. So when we go to Letsema furnishers, um, if you do remember, this company was working on a dining room suite that they were manufacturing, right? So what is important to us is, first of all, to understand how many units are they manufacturing a month. And so we have an indication that they have 200 units that they are manufacturing. And so you are given a list of costs. And as you know, you need to be able to categorize those costs. Um, so for any 1 year, what are the production costs? If you remember from our theory, we have three production costs. Can anyone tell me what are the three production costs? Right? So remember, you are presented with a list there. Are you able to see what are the three production costs? Yes, yes, Jesse.
Yes, so it's direct material, direct labor, and manufacturing overheads, if I'm not mistaken.
No, you are definitely not mistaken. Very, very good answer. However, the manufacturing overhead obviously is not classified as manufacturing overhead. We need now to find out what is manufacturing overhead among the costs that we have there, right? So Jesse is completely right. So we have our direct material. By the way, we are given that you need for 1 unit, you need 20 kg of that particular wood, right? So 20 kg. And we are provided the cost per kg. And that's quite easy because you can see a calculator on your right hand is, as I suppose, depending on, it might be on your left, right? On your left. So as you can see on the left of your screen, you can see here that we do have 20 times 30, which gives us an idea that the costs that we would incur to produce 1 unit would be 600, right? That is for 1 unit. Obviously, if we want to produce for 200 units, we will need to multiply this cost per unit times 200. Easy. I'm sure all of you know that, right? So as you can see here, I'm pointing with my mouse. I hope that it's visible. You can see, right? So you will need to take that per unit 600 multiplied by 200 for a total of 120,000. So we can say that the direct material, the wood, we will need 120K to be able to withstand production of the month, right? So then we move to our direct labor, like JC said, yes, and we can see there is a cost of 400 per unit, right? And it will be the same idea. So if it's 400 for the labor cost, right, per unit, in order for us to find the total cost for 200 units, we'll just multiply that by 200. But I know you know this, right? But now, again, we are being asked to think about the manufacturing overhead. Remember, it is a manufacturing overhead, so it's related to the actual manufacturing. The factory supervisor wages, that will be an example of a manufacturing overhead. All right? That will be an example of a manufacturing overhead. Could the factory rent be an example of a manufacturing overhead?
No.
Remember, remember that I think according to the example, it might be 25%. So they gave us, first of all, the full rent, because remember they are renting a factory. They also have the admin building. So I suppose, not I suppose, if we check on the example, there is a percentage allocated to the factory rent. There is a percentage allocated to the admin building, right? So, but remember, this will be an example, therefore, of a manufacturing overhead, because we can't do the production without the factory. So the 7,500, so I suppose, yeah, 75% or the three-quarter of the total rent is allocated to the factory, and 25% of the rent is allocated to the admin building. And that makes sense because the admin building would be generally smaller than a plant. Right? The plant will be way bigger, right? So we have 7,500 that is apportioned from the total rent, is apportioned to the factory. So this is an example. Remember, anything that is production related, falls under production or manufacturing costs. So they are manufacturing costs, but they are not direct material. They are not direct labor. They are overhead. Manufacturing, not any kind of overhead, not admin related overhead. As you can see, there is the salary of the assistant here. If you see, there is the assistant salary, which increases by 1,000. But this is an admin cost. It has nothing to do with the factory. But remember, additional insurance, and this additional insurance is dedicated to the factory. That will be also an example of what? Of a manufacturing overhead. So you have to be very careful at this point, right? Okay, the sales commission for selling, right? Would that be an example of a manufacturing overhead? Would that be? It's getting quiet in
No,
here.
I don't.
Yeah, Denver, you're correct on that one. That will not be, because that is, remember, the non-manufacturing cost. So this is a non-manufacturing cost. So the sales commission, Denver, is correct. We don't need to deal with it as a manufacturing cost. It's not a manufacturing cost. The wood polish, which is, by the way, an indirect material, would that be an example of a manufacturing overhead?
Sorry, the wood. You said.
Yeah, the wood polish, the wood polish, the wood polish.
I don't think it's a direct.
No, it's not a direct, but is it a
Yep.
manufacturing cost?
No, I don't think it would be.
It would be, because remember, you still
But
need
would you?
to use the wood polish to make the product, right?
But
But it's not a direct material, it is an
oh,
indirect material.
I got it. I got it. I was
Ah,
mixing the
you get
two
it.
up. I,
All right,
yeah.
all right. So you must always remember, and that's the reason why we are doing this practice, is to show you that yes, you do have direct material. The three musketeers, like we call them, there's two direct material, direct labor. But anything that is not direct, in other words, indirect, will constitute part of the manufacturing overhead. Right. So, and the last one, additional insurance. So, guys, this is something you need to practice. Be careful, like I said last week. I said, once you get any cost wrong, it's going to wrong all your calculations. So make sure when it comes to the categorization, you do understand what is manufacturing, what is direct manufacturing and indirect manufacturing, and what is non-manufacturing. It has nothing to do, for example, sales commission. That has to do with marketing and sales, right? And everything that is administrative, for example, the salaries of the administrative secretary, right, or assistant, that is non-manufacturing. It has nothing to do with manufacturing something, making a product. It has nothing to do. But obviously, when you're dealing with a supervisor, the supervisor will be looking over the manufacturing. So he's important. So the factory supervisor is important and is part of the manufacturing, but the cost of his wages is not direct because the supervisor does not touch the product. He supervises. So that's an indirect cost. So I hope everything is clear now. It's, by the way, it's an indirect labor. So you have direct labor that touches the product, that makes the product. So the factory supervisor is an indirect labor. And like we said, anything that is indirect is overhead. Right, so here we have a question. So I have to move there so you can see how the calculations are being done here. So for example, the supervisor, they tell you clearly that he's being paid per week, 600. So obviously for the month, remember that this covers a month production. You will need to multiply that by 4, right? So you have to be careful there, right? So you don't just take that 600. You need to do proper, always think about what is the time period. Remember, finance has to do also with timing, right? So here is our question. What will be your move? I would like to find out from both of you, Denver, as well as Jesse, right? What is the correct first step to determine the total cost of the new product? What are we going to do to determine the total cost? What will be the first step? And here are our options, right? So are we going to calculate the total production? We're talking about the manufacturing cost, right? Or are we going first to calculate the total non-production, non-manufacturing cost? Or the third option is add up all the costs provided. Jesse, what are you saying? What will be your move when you are in the exam and you have this question? You have this particular question. How do you go about? What's your first thing that you would think about?
Firstly, I would say we need to start with calculating the total manufacturing costs.
Wonderful, wonderful. I like that. I like that. I think, Denver, you would agree as well.
Yes, yes.
All right, so let's try it. So again, you have access to this. By the way, I'm going to share it in our chat here so that, again, you do have access to this. It's yours, it belongs to you, and you can play with it around. But yes, so now, what again would be your next move therefore, right? So what is the correct calculation here for the direct material, right? Unfortunately, I have it already on the screen so Jesse can see. All right, so are we going to take those 200 units and multiply by the 20 kg because it takes us 20 kg, right? At 30 rand per kg, right? To do 1 unit, right? Are we going to take the 200 units times 20 kg times 30? Or are we going to take the 200 units times 30 rand, right? Or are we going to take 20 kg times 30 kg? What are we going to do, Denver?
I think to count one unit first and then multiply the total amount.
Total amount. All right. So Denver, I didn't. You were cutting there, but I suppose you were talking about the first option, right? 200 units multiply by 20 kg multiply by 30.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, that's it. So, and you are correct. So you are correct. So this is how we would work around and look at the manufacturing overhead. Obviously, you know what's happening to your direct material. You know what's happening to your direct labor. Well done. So you are in your exam. You get this right, and now you have to move quickly to the manufacturing overhead. And you can see that the supervisor is there. The factory rent is there. The wood polish is there. The insurance is there, right? So you have to be very, very consistent here. And that, like I said, categorization, make sure that you classify your costs properly, making sure that you practice enough on this, and you don't leave anything to chance, right? All right, so let's move on to you have your example in your textbooks. If you have your textbooks in front of you, obviously you can see the example 3.4.3 for the break-even analysis, right? And so let's quickly move to this particular example, right? So we know the selling price. So we know that, remember the product that we were manufacturing? Yes, that's the one that we are talking about. So we know the selling price, that it's 3,000 per unit, right? So that's how much we're going to sell each unit, right? So we are required first, again, remember, to classify all costs as either fixed or variable when you are dealing with the break-even analysis. So this you must know. Okay, so there is no time for you in the exam to start wondering, how am I going to do this? You need to find what are your fixed, because remember, in the formula of the break-even analysis, there is the fixed cost. There's the variable cost. So what shall we do now? Okay, we need to classify as either fixed or variable. We agree with that. We need to calculate the total fixed cost. We need to calculate the total variable cost. And we need to granulate to the level of the variable cost per unit, right? And then we need to calculate the break-even point in units, right? So here is the question. No, so for this, what will be the first step that you're going to take in your break-even analysis, right? So you have to separate all costs into two categories, right? Will that be your first move? Or you need to calculate just the total revenue, or you just need first to determine the selling price? Jesse.
So I think it would rather be to separate all the costs into the two categories, the fixed costs and the variable cost.
Amazing. All right, so we click on that. All right, so I want you, Jesse, therefore, as a follow-up, because that was good, but I would like to find out from you, what is variable cost here, what is fixed cost here? We have the direct labor, we have the factory rent, we have the factory supervisor's wage. What is fixed here and what is variable?
So I think it would rather be the direct labor, because we know the factory rent would be a specified amount that they have agreed on when they signed the rental contract, and probably the same situation with the supervisor's wage. So therefore, I do think it's the direct labor, because maybe they are putting in extra hours to produce this unit.
Impressive reasoning. But in fact, even if they don't put extra hour, remember again when we talked about the cost behavior last week, we say that the variable cost behavior, we know that the total cost could vary with the number of units, but the cost per unit is always fixed when we were looking at the variable. So, but yes, indeed, this is a variable cost. The direct labor is a variable cost. And that, all right, so here is our classification of fixed cost and variable cost. And Jesse was on point there: the supervisor wage, the factory rent, rates and taxes, the advertising. We would need to agree on a fixed amount. We're not going to play like we don't know. Maybe next week the the cost might change, the cost of advertising. No, it's part of our contracting, right? The admin salary, obviously, we agree on a fixed amount for the insurance, for the quality controller. These are all examples of fixed cost. The variable cost as it is, we know that the direct material, the direct labor, these are variable costs, because indeed also the wood price could change. It could vary. But that's not the point. The point should always be, we know that the variable cost behavior for a unit during a certain period of production, for a particular unit, that variable cost will be fixed. So we agree, like we said, was it 30 rands? I think it was 30 rand per kg, right? For the wood, 30 rands. We agree. So for those, it's not going to change to 40 rand. No, maybe in another production term. But we are saying for this production term, we agree that per unit, the 30 is fixed. But it's going, why is it variable? Because it's going to depend on the number of units that we are going to be producing. It's fixed because it doesn't matter how many units we are going to produce. It does not matter. The supervisor wage is not going to change because we produced more units. But the variable cost is going to change when we produce more units. I hope you understand that, all right? So direct labor will be the same thing. The sales commission will be the same thing. The wood polish will be the same thing. The glue and nails. The total variable cost will change with the total number of units we are producing. But when it comes to fixed, fixed doesn't care how many units you are going to produce. Right? So your move. Now that we have the total fixed cost of 20,000 rand, right? So the variable cost per unit is 1,613, right? You know what we did, right? We took the total variable cost divided by the number of units. That's how we found that 1,613, sorry. All right, so now what concept must we calculate next to find the break-even point? What are we going to do? Total revenue, net profit, marginal income. What is the next step? Oh, it's getting quiet here. Come on, guys.
Marginal income, sir. It's marginal income.
Marginal income or contribution margin. Always remember that one. Very, very important. And how do we get that contribution margin? What are we going to do to get that contribution margin? It's quite easy. We say that
it's
sales price.
Change in cost of production divided by the quantity produced.
Remember, we have already obtained the variable cost per unit. Remember, I told you always need to take the selling price, right? Which is 3,000. You just need to take what is variable from that, right? Because the contribution margin is what we're going to use to cover fixed costs. All these fixed costs that you see up there. So this amount that you see is there. So when you're charging 3,000 rand, you need to cover your cost. Remember, we say that you first need to cover your cost for making even the chair itself, right? So in 3,000 rand, you have 1,613 that is variable cost that was there just to help you make that chair, right? The rest is what we call marginal income. And why is it important? Because that marginal income would be used to keep the lights on. Remember, I said that last week. I said, guys, if you don't understand anything, if you are doing any business, you still need to worry about keeping the light on, paying your rent. The rest beyond that, after that, then you start to make profit. Remember that. So that's the concept of marginal income here. And you will see here, look at marginal income here. We're taking the selling price, 3,000, minus what it cost us to make the chair. So this little amount here is going to help us to cover the fixed cost, cover the rent. And the extra will be profit. Guys, I hope everything is clear. You are doing your practice and you understand. So that's correct, right? So how are we going to do the break-even analysis now? Like I said, we take the marginal income, right? The marginal income as you see it there. That marginal income is going to be, we take the total fixed cost, we divide by that marginal income. So that's the reason why we call it, so to keep the light, we will need 15 units to keep the light. But we know we're going to keep the lights, right? We know we're going to keep the lights because we are producing what? 200 units. Is this clear, guys? Is this clear before we leave? Does this make sense?
Yes, thank you, sir. This makes much more sense now.
Yes, please. And so the rest, therefore, that you need to worry about, Denver and Jesse, please work on your cost classification. Very important. And also remember, you can get the break even per unit, right? You can get the break even per unit, but you can also get the break even in terms of money, so how much will that be? So for 15 units, how much will that be? So practice those things, when you get the chance. But I am very much sure that we have actually, covered the essential, and you have everything that is needed, plus this recording, plus the other material that you have. Please practice. You should be fine for next week. There's nothing to fear. You should actually go and ace your paper. All right. Any questions before we say goodbye?
Yes, so I just want to ask, because
Yeah.
VC is not going to give me my deferment, so I have no choice. I have to sit and do this test while I'm in KZN. Um,
Yes.
uh, the last test took me a while because I was at work, but realistically, how long should this take